formal title will be an assistant professor at School of Communication Studies at Kent State University.
Okay. What should students be aware of culturally when studying in another country?
If there are several ways to think about cultural awareness. First one is in terms of a stage model, meaning that when you go into a new culture for the first time, there are several stages that you will go through. For example, a very, very common model that is called intercultural adaptation. And first one will be the honeymoon period. That is where people enter the culture for the first time, and for the very first few days or for the very first few weeks, they feel very excited about the culture. They think everything is really wonderful. It's going to be such a unusual experience, and they like the food, they like the places, they like the people. Everything's new to them, so they are pretty excited and happy about everything that they see and the people that they meet. But then that kind of excitement will gradually go away as they start to settle in with their lives, whether it's they study abroad, so they have to go into the classrooms, or they going abroad for a job assignment. So they started to deal with the business and the people on a daily basis, and they start to get frustrated with the language barriers, the cultural barriers, and even just as simple as the climate. Climate is different. The holidays are different. The usual items that they need on a daily basis, that is hard to get in that place. So they quickly fall into what we call crisis period, or culture shock. Culture shock. You're shocked by the unfamiliar environment or communication styles. If it is not dealt appropriately, or is not managed well in a timely fashion, might get into what we call crisis period, where you quickly go downhill, and you start to get really resentful with the place, and you don't like the people anymore. You get into cultural fatigue all the time, because once you have to deal with all the barriers and all the differences every day and every minute of your time, and it's very exhausting. So a lot of people, they feel like they cannot perform very well or as much as they would like to, and that creates anxiety and stress. So eventually, some of them do decide to quit, or go home. They don't want to continue the assignment or the study abroad program anymore. But of course, you are going to get better after the period of time with if you take certain actions. Not that it's going to be natural, you're going to naturally get better, but you have to take some actions and be more culturally sensitive and be willing to try to be open-minded, and then that will get you to readjust into the environment. So there are stages that will describe this kind of situation, and it will be good for anybody who wants to study abroad to be aware, or be at least anticipate this might happen. Of course, the model cannot really describe everybody's situation you may have, and it really depends on the level of your preparedness. Like if you are well prepared, you are sensitive about the cultural differences, and you talk to people before you even go abroad to get yourself situated, then that will minimize the possible negative influence from those culture shock.
How do you suggest students handle language and cultural barriers?
Like I said before, it's well prepared. Be well prepared. That's very important. You shouldn't go into the culture without much understanding of its language. It will be better to take a semester or 2 semesters on that particular language, and you get to speak. At least be able to get around. That's one possibility, or you should take a general intercultural communication class. Provide you with some backgrounds and some information. When you go into a place that you feel like you're lost, you don't know what happened, you have some information to help you understand the situation, or explain why there's a difference between cultures, then that usually will help a little bit. But if you are already in there and you have this cultural barrier or cultural or language barrier, one good thing is that you should go in there and prepare to be surprised, and don't have high expectations that everybody can speak English, everybody's going to understand you, or think that everything is going to be so Americanized that you can get everything there. So ready to be surprised. If you can lower your expectation and also know that you will be surprised, then that usually will help a little bit as well. The other thing is avoid being judgmental. A lot of people they like to go in there, and when they see something, a barrier, whether it's a language or it's culture, then they have this tendency and say American is the best way, or our way is the better way, which is unavoidable. But at least that don't just criticize the cultural practices, or think something is disgusting, or some food is disgusting, or having an indirect communication style is a waste of time. People should be direct. Why can't they just speak up their mind? So avoid being judgmental. That would usually help with the overcoming with the barrier.
How do I deal with aspects of another culture that make me uncomfortable?
One thing I think it's important is that whenever you're going into the culture, you have to make certain kinds of compromise. You have to compromise a little bit. For example, here we do have a interpersonal like distance that we think it's appropriate. We don't like people to violate our comfort zone or our interpersonal this little bubble, cultural bubble. And many times that you go into the culture where people are going to be so close to you, or the population is very dense, so it's very crowded. You are always constantly bumping into each other and make you really uncomfortable. In that type of situation, you do have to compromise a little bit. You cannot bring your American way, or whatever the country you're coming from is. I cannot bring my Taiwanese way into this culture and think that it's going to always be the same, and people have to respect my interpersonal distance.
Where can I go to learn more about intercultural communication?
If you are in a university setting, then it's should be very common to be able to take classes, whether it's a general intercultural communication class, or you can go to the business department. A lot of times they do have intercultural or cultural classes on specific countries, or you can go to psychology or go to anthropology to take courses, or you can join certain organizations on campus that has cultural emphasis on it. There are a lot of intercultural or international students association on campus where you can get involved. You can participate in their events. You can sign up with, for example, Kent State has a conversation partner program, and I believe that in Akron University, some other universities, they all have similar programs you can sign up for. It's good to have the knowledge and also have actual experience before you try to study abroad program. So you get to meet with friends and make friends here, and maybe sometimes they, when they return to their countries, and it's actually where you want to go. And so you already have a friend over there to help you out. Of course, internet is always a great resource, but just have to remember a lot of information, whether we get it from the class, from the internet, even from personal experiences, they are not. We should not apply that to everybody that you meet. it's still pretty specific to the individual differences, and we have to keep that in mind. Don't bring a lot of stereotypes that you have from the media or from the internet to apply to the people that you meet. So that's important to